think you know how to go live, right? Just
Yes,
press the go live stuff.
hitting the two go live
All right.
buttons at the same time. I think the stream started. Are we gonna have? Yes, it did. Okay, so it looks like we're live. This has been a bit of an experience. It felt like an Inception, a stream inside a stream, and 3 replicas of audio coming back. How cool is this? This is the experience of the first live. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good night, depending on where you are in the world. I haven't managed actually to mute the third stream. So let's see if I can do it now before I become crazy. Here we go, done. Okay, not 3, but 4 streams. Come on, Loris, you can do it. So this is the end of the day for me. So it's 6:31 p.m. Sydney time, Australia. It's supposed to be summer, but it's still pretty chilled in here. But I can't complain because my co-host Winfried is from North Europe, Norway. So pretty chilled there. How are you, Winfried? And welcome to the live.
Good, thanks, Loris. Yeah, it's definitely winter here. See, it's cold, it's dark.
So what is cold for you?
Definitely.
What is cold for you? Give me a frame of reference.
We got warmer the last days. I don't know why. So we're expecting rain basically now. So we're around 0.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't buy minus 10, minus 12.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, so we're close because this morning was 3 degrees at 5 a.m. in the morning. So we're not that far. Incredible. Sydney like Norway. This is definitely a first. I'm popping a couple of links to our show on LinkedIn. If you guys are following from LinkedIn, you'll find them in the chat, hopefully. Let's see. I feel like a kid experiencing, getting the first, hopping on a bike for the first time. I'm like, what is going on? Okay, so I think links have been posted. We have 13 people joining us, 11 on YouTube and a few more on LinkedIn. So thank you for joining, guys. Thank you for joining. And perhaps I'm not sure whether you can type at the moment or you're maybe traveling, going somewhere. But if you can type, let us know where you are connecting from, because the show here is really an opportunity to connect with all of you and hopefully connect all of you with all of you, like create a big opportunity to connect and learn from one another. This has been a hell of a year, Winfried. What are your thoughts? I mean, come on, can someone say something about our hats, please? Because this put a lot of effort into this.
You too, right?
Oh, look at that! Okay, I don't go that advanced on mine. I can only turn it on and turn it off. So if I had an extra minute and a couple lines of Python, I could automate this, but I'm gonna leave them on.
I took mine off
Okay.
Too much. But yeah, it's been a crazy year for us on the podcast business, but also in the data business, right? And you and I together, we talked to, which is an impressive number, and tried to compare notes over the weekend. Tried to look. We've been through all the thoughts we had, all the great from our data leaders, and it's just so much. It's impossible.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what happens when you write the copy for an event. Winfried and I have been talking to one another. What are we gonna say? What are we gonna talk about? And Obviously, there's only so much you can brainstorm by email, which is good because you think, I don't have a lot of space to type. Surely I will keep it nice and concise. But in those 7 points, so what do we have? Let's go in order. This is the promise, right? Then let's see how much we can deliver in the time we have. But the 7 points are, in no particular order: lead, data is a shared asset, we share benefits, and data quality is a shared responsibility, which by itself could be like a conference or a summit. Network, tips to build stronger relationships with your stakeholders. Again, probably a pile of books in my to-read list just on that. Sell, map the compelling business need behind your data management initiative. Yeah, we're not overselling at all, overpromising at all. Be memorable. A simple framework to increase your storytelling 10x. This is me, by the way, so a simple framework. I don't know if I can cover that simple framework in 40 minutes, but we'll see. And then the other 3, Winfried, we got support, enable the business to take lead, provide guidance. And this was one of your points. We have observe as well. Don't jump to conclusions, but observe the demographics, ways of working, and environment.
If you have time to
and
do that.
And have fun. Provide a framework to ensure collaborative readiness and psychological safety, and encourage failure as a means to learn.
This one is
So
really
yeah,
good.
so
Kind of says have fun, and then it comes like a long readiness and psychological safety. It doesn't really sound like fun when that's our job to make it fun, right?
yeah, and Christmas hats are part of that. No. But in a way it is, because we're not taking ourselves too seriously, and I think that's an important point. I was reflecting on a TED video. I mean, TED's got thousands of great videos, but one of them recently was about this person that for a lifetime spent like sort of studied how to make marketing more effective. So it's all about the copywriting, and the words and the action and the verbs, all of that, right? And then one day, out of fun, really started to draw cartoons for fun, and those cartoons started circulating at work, and before he realized, it had gathered 100,000 plus people reading his newsletter. Those cartoons turned into a newsletter grew, and eventually he ended up on a stage of TED talking about the power of humor and really like how powerful it is when you have an important message to share, but you don't take yourself too seriously, so that people kind of go like, this is not threatening, this is cool, but still they get a chance to laugh and hear your message. So that was cool.
Yeah, interesting.
Hey, this is not, we don't really have apart from these talking points, we don't really have a structure. So because there's no right and there is no wrong, unless someone in the chat stops us or asks a question, or decides that we should talk about something else, which by the way, you should totally do that if you want. Maybe you can start random. Let's do a random number shuffling here, which is not random at all because I'm doing it by hand, but like super random. Let's start with I'm playing with Notion, moving things around, so that tells you the level of how prepared we are for this live, people. Network. Let's start with network. Tips to build stronger relationships with your stakeholders. Boom. Winfried, you want to take that?
I can perspective here. I had, I think, 2 or 3 with public services, and the more you automate public with data and public services, the more connection you need to get to your citizens. Kind of an important point. We talked about and how important data lineage is to create for your citizens, but at the same time also the possibility to trace those decisions there. And another aspect in that is also explainable about the way we we work with data. AI, for example. AI shouldn't be a black box where it's like an algorithm that you don't really know how it works as an attribute. But how do you make that? I think that's an important part.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And there's one thing that we do really like poorly, I think, in data in general, and especially in data management, which is communication. We think that people have the same understanding of why we need to manage data and why data is an asset, or why we need certain like architectural systems, the infrastructure to keep running the show and keep producing insights. But it doesn't match reality. There's a huge disconnect between what the professionals, the leaders know in their heads, and what the normal folks, those that don't have data in their title, what's in their heads, how they understand it, how they think about it. So it's almost weird, but like building stronger relationships starts obviously with listening, and you can't listen if you're not present. So I think in my personal experience, presence is key. And presence means sometimes feeling out of place, that you don't belong. And it's happening to me right now. Like I spend many hours a week in a reality that is far away from everything that I've done so far, which is great because it's an opportunity to learn, and that's what drives me. But it's also strange because I feel like I don't have any weapons with me. I don't know the context. I have to rebuild everything from scratch, and sometimes presence also means to accept the fact that there are so many experts in the organization, and the answers most of the time are already in their heads. It's just that nobody has taken the time to listen and combine them together into a single puzzle. What do you think about that? Did you have a similar experience? So, because I guess it depends also on how big the organization is.
Oh, definitely. And I think we have another part on observe. If you have the chance to be with every business unit and observe hands-on how they're working with data, you're much better prepared. So I think is kind of that domain-driven. We get data closer to the business. How do we get closer to where the actual value is created, right? So data management is happens on the sidelines anymore. We are have to be in the business, and I think that Mikael Bendixen, he framed it quite well. That still sticks with me. It's like drop that data management lingo. Nobody cares that you're using the fancy words. It's about understandable. And why are we talking about? Why are we talking about master data management if the business and what it entails? So just try to use the business lingo.
Yeah, it's a big one. Be understandable. Use the language. I've heard this tip a billion times in the last 2 years. You got to speak the language of the business. Speak a language that people understand. And I think it took me a while to really internalize this lesson. And I still fail. Often it happened to me just last week. I was giving a presentation on a project at work, and I just, being a podcast host also helps. I love how my red Christmas decoration keeps bouncing up and down. This is so weird. But I was in the room. I was looking at these people, and because I'm hosting a podcast, I'm used to sort of try and listen to my voice as I speak. So that's what saved the day. A bit of that, and also reading the room. Everybody was, they were engaging 2 minutes before, and now they were just looking at me as if I was from Mars. And well, I guess there's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek here because I'm actually working for Mars, but Mars the planet. And and that was the signal that I had to change a little bit the language. But it's not just the vocabulary, the words and the keywords we use. It's also like the famous "so what," right? It's starting from the need, the compelling need, the frustration, the problem, the objective, I guess, that the audience is trying to go towards, and why they're not getting there. And there's no way to know that unless we ask questions, right? So there's no textbook, there's no magic formula. It's just asking the question and getting people to talk to us. So being present is definitely the start, and to become understandable, without learning anything, without taking extra courses necessarily, just knowing what people are talking about, I suppose.
I think this one, back to what you said earlier, about being involved in the business. I think for us to understand this need, it sounds easy, but right, and there's a difference between asking someone, so what do you want? You get two different set of and it kind of preparing, even though you're trying to understand the business management perspective, you're still doing it from your perspective. You have to go that extra mile to look at the other, to see it from their perspective, try to get become a part.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if there's anybody that have tips here. Maybe feel free to add in the chat, because there's so much that can vary from culture to culture as well. I've worked in different organizations in different places, I suppose, on the planet, and people think in a different way. If you go to the US, there's a type of culture, people tend to celebrate wins a lot. Everything is a big deal. Everything is awesome. If you go to Australia, we're very much the opposite. People don't show that they're excited about things. So everything is like a no-brainer, like not a biggie, not a big deal, Yeah. And so it's hard sometimes to even understand or read the temperature in the room. So you kind of have to live in the country to absorb that norm. But most people, I'm new to my job, but I think it's safe to assume that a lot of people are not in their first 3 months of onboarding. So you've seen people, you kind of have a feel for what the culture in the place is. So once you reach that state, I suppose a question for everybody, for you, Winfried, for me, but also for the people that are listening, like how do you make people interested in talking to you as a data management professional? What do you do? Do you offer free beer? Is it about non-alcoholic drinks? Is it about playing soccer or cricket, or like what's your strategy? The one thing that never fails. Curious to hear. Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good one. I did a couple episodes on data culture, not just in 2021, and we talked a bit about different cultures in different places, and that also reflects back on the data. And if you do a data transformation program, trying in your business, you have to be aware of where you are. Podcast saying that, well, if you do it in the US, you get 18 excited about it. They just want to and then they kind of starting during those 18 months to the back room about, oh, this is not going to work out. And in Europe, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of, you start your 18 months, and there are 18 months of resistance. It's established. Everyone's on board. But what we also talk. Sorry, I give you the chance. There was one point that I thought was really interesting. Talking a lot about PPT, people, process, technology, Important is to get the people on board, but what percent of it is about technology, the rest is about people and processes. And there's an important point here that good technology services can help foster that data culture. And if you actually deliver good data technology services, it's much easier.
Yeah, and there's also another aspect here as well, which is perhaps more in the strategic direction, of the conversation. Because if a technology is a matter of having money to buy it or rent it or subscribe to it, a process and people is the unclonable stuff, is what ultimately makes you hard to be copied. The way that you do things is specific to that organization. So it's probably another type of intangible asset that I don't think we have a way to capture processes as an intangible asset in a P&L, but a profit and loss statement, but it should definitely be there. Well, we don't have data in the profit and loss statement, and that's one of the big lessons I learned from Doug Laney from his book Infonomics. So if we don't have data there, what hope do we have to find processes as an intangible asset? It's not going to work anytime soon, but it is a way to think about it. And yet back on the relationships, and I'm reading this with a bit of delay, so apologies to those that are engaging in the chat. Keep doing that, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher your name. Mu'tasim El Haj. You correct me and tell me 1 to 10 as someone from Italy that's lived 10 years in Australia. How close did I get to your actual name pronunciation? Hopefully that's not too far. But Mu'tasim says, knowing my customer and telling my story is one of the hardest things to do. But once the communication channel is made and we become on the same page of understanding each other, the rest is easy. At least it becomes easier. And I think there's an interesting point here, the communication channel. We think about being present, being understandable, but perhaps the very first step is to open up, like to create the space. It could be Teams, it could be a room, a physical meeting, and that's one piece. You got to be present in the right space, because if you're present in the wrong space, people don't have time to listen to you, right? But then there's also the element of actually being genuinely willing to listen. Yeah, I'm sure you have stories that, as I'm completing the sentence, there are stories or memories that bubble up. When was the last time that you had an important message to share to someone, a stakeholder? You knew enough about their problem to sort of go like, hey, we need to collaborate here. We're not enemies. We're not on just the fact that we're in two different departments. It doesn't mean we can't partner up. It doesn't mean I can't add value to your work. But when was the last time that you remember not seeing that engagement and sort of wondering, why do people don't get it? I'm here to help them out. I'm here to improve data quality or data availability or uptime or whatever it is that you're trying to do to make your life better. How on earth you don't understand that? It happened to me a lot. So I'm curious to hear from you, Winfried, if that happens to you as well. How do you deal with that? Because that goes to the sell point.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That happens every day.
There you go. Winfried is offering free courses from tomorrow live on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a lot about and you work in a routine and how you do your practices. That data knowledge and that working. It's kind of a crash. It always is. Solution to it. That will always happen. And you kind of need to find a way to introduce it. Well, different approaches to it, right? You can do a bit like the non-invasive shout out non-invasive approach to it. But in the end, you're still going to crash at one point because it's about identity. It's about, because love from work, right? This is my job. This is my title. And now you come and tell me I have to do my work differently. be hard. I did in an earlier project
decision to
sit physically with. So I moved around a lot, so every different place. But the idea was to free time in the calendar and observe, respect the ways,
respect the processes,
and then find a way to adapt the new by respecting the old. But I think that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's tough, and it goes into the other promise we have there in the description for the event, the sell, right? Mapping the compelling business need behind your data management initiative, which sounds like an easy thing, but compelling, I think that's the verb here that that we need to focus on, but also mapping. So it has to be a mapping, but it has to be compelling. Compelling, compelling to me, you know, in large organizations, there's business updates regularly that anyone can attend, public forums where, you know, business leaders set the strategy, they talk about what they want to achieve, what are the key parameters, the targets and the time frame, right? What are they really aiming to achieve? And it's not that's not the easy part. That's not the hard part for us, because someone else has worked hard to create that compelling business need. The hard part for us is to map it to the data management work that we're doing, and to communicate it in a way that people see what's in it for them at all levels. And that's, I think, really the hard part, because we mentioned that data is a shared asset and a shared benefit, right? But I think it's intrinsic to this aspect of data, and I'm keen here to hear as well, you and the audience, that like if you buy a cup of coffee, you drink it and you benefit from it. You can buy 2 cups of coffees, one for me, one for Winfred, and we both enjoy coffee. But it ends there, right? There's no sharing my coffee because I had it. It's in my system. I can't, even if I want it, I can't share with someone else. With data, data is different, because I touch a piece of data, I do something with it, and next I know, someone else will consume and maybe merge and join that piece of data with 20, 30 more pieces in a larger data set to solve another business problem. So, you know, it's hard to communicate what's in it for you individually. Often that value is not in a transaction. You know, some percentage of that value is transactional, but there's a larger component that is non-transactional, that has to do with, hey, if we have better systems and better data, we can answer more complicated questions. We as a business, an organization, not just me individually. So I don't know, does anyone have an idea? How do you balance the long-term, I suppose, thinking, and how do you convey this message that data is a shared benefit while simultaneously making it ultra clear to whoever is listening what's in it for them as a person, as an individual? Because in the end, we're not heroes. We want to go home. We have our family. We have our hobbies. You know, we want to sleep at night. So nobody's a data management hero. We can be leaders, but no heroes. So I don't know. How do you feel about this trade-off, and what do you do to make it happen?
Yeah, I would love to hear from the people in the audience about that. I've
return of investment for data
quality work. Really interesting. And I mean, it's kind of
return of investment for data quality work. It's much easier to explain
for machine learning projects or artificial intelligence or data science projects.
Data quality, it's kind of,
there's a step in between, right?
You need data quality to do
something that creates value. And I think that's
the tough part to explain.
I encourage everyone to listen to that episode, because there's so much valuable. And there were two students who wrote their master thesis. It's really interesting.
Which episode is this?
Oh, I think it's called Return of Investment on Data.
All right. Yeah, I'm checking it out. on Apple Podcast. Dama Norway, if you are wondering and you have time to browse, I'm going to add a link to LinkedIn as well and to YouTube. If you guys are on YouTube and you're following us, you should be able to find it over there. Yeah, definitely I'll check it out. That's for sure. Data is a shared asset with shared benefits. Data quality is a shared responsibility. I think there's a lot here. And you know what I think we do a lot, Winfried, is stop, like we get frustrated very quickly as professionals because we have gone through the cycles of learning and rethinking what data is. And that's why most of us, I think, became passionate about the topic, because we see the impact that data can have on organizations, the transformational power of this thing, whatever it is, right? An asset, a benefit, shared benefit. I personally enjoy the human challenge, which is kind of why I created Discovering Data as a platform, as a space to explore what it is. What does it even mean? Isn't data just a collection of databases? Isn't just a bunch of bots, a bunch of code with all the automation and the AI on top to keep it running? Yes, that's part of it, but then there's all the interface between the database and the knowledge that is captured with the knowledge that it is not captured. And in most organization is the largest majority of knowledge, of information that flows through the bigger system made of hardware, computers, and people, like the big organization, the organization as a whole. And that's kind of what it at the same time I feel attracted by the challenge, but I also overwhelmed. I feel, especially when I observe what happens in the real world, when I see big meetings, operational meetings, people talking about what's next, what is the problem, even basic diagnostic, a lot of it has to do with the subject matter experts knowing from experience. They've seen this thing happen in different contexts. And so there is a sense almost that experience and memory is more valuable than the data that is in the database. It's always a lagging thing, Yeah, maybe we'll look in some database, but 90% of the time people already know that data is going to be not useful. So it's a huge barrier, right? Because you're like, come on, like we need to make the data better. We can benefit enormously if we do that, but they go like, yeah, but now it's crap. And yeah, you've got this visionary journey to make it better, but like, who's gonna pay for it? And that's where I go like, oh, I need to double down on my storytelling and get better at that.
But you are touching in on something that's existential for us, right? And for the work we are doing. And I think that management by itself, there's no reason to do data management. It has a goal, right? It has a goal to create value and to gain value. People rather use their their thoughts or addition to argue instead of data, then what's the value?
Yeah. If anyone has any idea on this, by the way, like feel free to pop it in the chat for everyone else to learn. It could be a conversation starter as well for right now or for our next live as well. We do have some feedback, which I just got to read right now. So apologies if I am not really reactive on this one. But someone says that there are some issues with our videos. Hopefully this is not too bad. Let us know in the chat. Again, I'm following LinkedIn and YouTube chat, so if you write anything in one of those two, I'll be able to see it and engage with you, hopefully. And so what's next? But let me ask you a question, Winfried. Why did you start your podcast?
Yeah, this is I started my podcast to Nordic data experts. So I've had like
But at that point,
already. I just wanted to promote the people that are not normally on the podcast.
right,
Those practitioners who work with data every day, and because a lot of really good work happening in the Nordics. So I thought, well, why not just talk to them and go from there? And that's how it started.
really enjoyed the journey. And
I mean, there gotten some bigger names on the podcast afterwards, so it's not exclusively those experts that are just working on the data. But that's still my goal, right? To promote those people who normally are not. And I mean, I'm doing this as
right.
this is my free time activity. Couldn't enjoy it more. It's just great conversations, great people. Same for you?
In a way, yeah. I feel like I got really passionate about the topic after working as a data scientist and realizing that we just didn't have the systems and the data to do what we wanted to do, to be honest. Like, as much as I could have done a lot of storytelling, and surely my storytelling improved in the last 2-3 years, but even then, like if you're missing the ingredients, you can't cook a meal. So you can't just talk about it, then you have to do it, right? Like, storytelling is talking and motivating and being and persuading, which is good. But you do that after, you got to follow up with an actual meal, something of substance, something even small, right? But you have to be able to prove some sort of value, or at least give a hint that, hey, we just scratched the surface. There's a mine here. There's literally a gold mine. We can do so much more if only we could trust that data. And I think that's a mistake that I did at the beginning, and that led me to appreciate data engineering. And I entered data management from the engineering angle, really trying to try to build systems that would give me reliable data that would match as close as possible what was already in the heads of people, so that my sort of influencing was easier. And I got lost in there. So my idea was quickly fix it and go back to do data science, and I lost. It was the beginning of a journey that then I understood. Okay, data management. It's a thing. It's a journey. It's a way of living. It's a philosophical choice. It's a career choice. And so that's what. And also, to be honest, I lost a little bit of interest in data science, because I was like, well, 90% of the time, we can deliver value with a linear fit, a linear model, or some simple, k-means classification algorithm, or trees at random forest. I mean, this stuff is it's pretty standard. It's been in the literature for decades, so it's not state of the art. We don't really need to use the latest generative AI to improve systems in a business. Depends on the level of maturity. But as we know, and that's another lesson from Doug Laney, I think was Infonomics, the episode. What I learned from Doug is that after 17 years at Gartner, the CDO office, they did a lot of surveys, and they found that there are 5 levels of data maturity, and there's a distribution. Only a small percentage of companies are in level 5, like this, less than 5%. Most of the organizations are getting there. They're discovering that the stuff matters. They're started investing, but the cultural change takes a lot longer than just 2-3 years. And that's the problem, because the lifespan, the average tenure, the lifespan of it's much longer, but the average tenure of CDOs is 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's complicated, right? How do you make change happen when you have only 2.5 years? It's a tough one.
Tough one.
Yeah.
I see there's a question from the chat about. I feel like that most of us have the same problems in most parts of the world. We're still calling them cultural challenges.
It's a good point.
One from you, Loris?
Yeah, I think culture here, the way that I understand it, at least, I don't think of the culture as in, Italy, Norway, France, Argentina. I think about culture as the unspoken rules and the norms and behaviors that people follow without even thinking. So it's part of habit. Yeah, part of it is a habit. Like, for example, in my current company, there's a culture of there's a problem in the factory, we go and see, right? We don't just stay in the office, talk about and potentially come up with theories for what the problem might be. There is a culture. There is an unspoken, automatic, instinctive behavior. Something goes wrong, we just drop our laptop, we put our safety boots, and we go straight into the factory to try and see what the problem is. That's culture to me. But I don't know. Maybe people interpret culture in a different way. It's a loaded word, so I wouldn't be surprised if we have different views.
Yeah, but this is an interesting one because put on your boots and go down and see. That's not every. This is specific to your company. That's one part of the culture, right? That specific company culture. And the more you work with, especially data governance and rules and regulations and principles, culture unraveling, and the more challenges you get to tackle in the company. And then there's the culture outside of the company. And I think we had an episode on EU about data sharing, about AI. Artificial Intelligence Act. It's an entirely different thing than what.
Yeah.
My wife is also working management. She's working for
right.
public services. ID control. So we check IDs in a way that we can ensure when people come to Norway. And
yeah, right.
At a conference just a couple of weeks back, and she saw someone from the US speaking up about rules they have in place and what mechanisms they have in place, and everyone in Europe got, you can't do that. There's something about privacy rights, and this is a typical example for that. There are countries. Privacy is one of the easiest to see across the world, and I don't know how in Australia.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, definitely. It's a topic that is in top 3 when you talk about data. It's just because there's an expectation now that people are following the latest regulations when it comes to privacy, and there's a huge actually market growing at the moment around becoming in control as a user of a platform, taking control of your data and monetizing it, deciding actually whether you want to monetize it or you want to stay completely anonymous. Companies that embed that way of thinking in their product are going to be a step ahead. And in that segment of companies, I put myself as well, because the difference between Metadama and discovering data is that discovering data is a business, is a business of one. I'm running the show with my business of two, a business of two, now a business of two. Yeah. It's been a business of one for a long time. Sorry, Ren. This is just old habits. It's a business of two, but it started out just with myself for 18 months. And now we expanded. We're a team of 2, but it's a small business, right? And what we're trying to do is create opportunities for people to learn from one another. And that's sort of the learning that I didn't have when I was just consuming content on YouTube. I found that when you're actively learning, you learn a lot more. It's more fun. And so meeting people and guests for the last 2 years, over 50 now episodes, that's been a thrill. It pushes you. When I'm especially living in Australia, most of them are in the US, so we record at weird times. Normally it's 6 a.m. in Australia. No matter I feel like no matter what I do, it's always 6 a.m. here. And so 6 a.m. awake in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, trying to formulate questions that make sense, pushing the boundary, of what I think I know, and often be proven wrong. And that's kind of the whole thrill, right? That's why I do it fundamentally. Then it's also a business. And some of you in the audience are looking for podcasts to tell your story. You should definitely reach out to me, because we're planning now the strategy for next year, but that's a bit of a plug. But what I wanted to say back to that comment on culture is one example of in that habit, that instinctive behavior is really hard to form and to sustain, and it's even harder to spread. Like, think about how hard it is for us individuals to get new habits. I decided I want to lose weight. I said, okay, I'm going to buy a bicycle. I'm going to ride to work. It sounds like a no-brainer, but it's actually super hard to get that habit going for one person. Now imagine building a habit for an organization. It becomes incredibly complicated, and that's why we need to stay patient, keep the eye on the ball, and think, okay, we're here for the long term, right? Because we're data management professionals, so we can't just focus on short-term stuff. But if we don't focus on short-term stuff, people are not going to listen to us. They're not going to invest. We're not going to secure the funding that we need to do the things we need to do. And that, I think this is the challenge, right, of the category as professionals. How do we deliver sugar in the short term to get those hormone spikes to fire, and people go get addicted to it? Hey, this stuff is good, I want more. A positive, healthy addiction to quality data, to systems that are integrated, without sacrificing the long-term view. Otherwise, we lose trust long-term, and nobody wants to be, on the way home with a big paper box with all your stuff in it because you've been made redundant because someone in the business thinks that your work is absolutely useless. I mean, that's the worst, and I've been there. So,
yeah, I feel like because it's back to it's really hard in the value we are doing, the long-term value. These people on during the journey, right? We said something about long-term commitments to data quality, data management are important. But once you do that, you have to do speedy day-to-day operations, and that has been key to his success. And this is what you're saying, like how do you find those low-hanging fruits? Okay, but let's do this to keep everyone on track. The long term. Anyone in the audience?
And yeah, definitely. Jump in the chat. Let us know. I suppose filling the void. What a quick thing that I can share is the fact that I think we do a lot of that challenge has to do with how we think. And let me unpack it. So, imagine it happens to me constantly, right? I see examples of bad data hygiene all over. Like, pretty much, I don't even have to open my eyes to see bad data hygiene. I know that there are people that just wing it. They put things together, just to get the task, get it done, tick the box, move on. And for them, it's absolutely fine. Like, they're fine. They're happy people, They don't go home thinking, God, that was really bad. What did I do? I did a disfavor to myself and to everybody that will come in touch with that data set tomorrow and in weeks and months in the future. I envy them. I envy those that can go home thinking everything is fine, because I would love sometimes to be them. But other than sharing this, how I feel about them, it teaches me something, right? That I have, because the way of working you mentioned before, Winfried, that we need to adapt to the way of working. Yes, we are catalysts. Yes, we want to make change happen long term. We want business transformation to enable digital transformation. All of those things, culture and people, yes, but fundamentally we are lazy machines. We want to do the least amount of effort, spend the least amount of energy to ensure that we can procreate, have a happy life, and go about our journey in life, right? Without too many worries. That's the natural state. Now, I don't know why data management professionals, including me, because I kind of identify with data management professionals as well as data science, bit of a hybrid. But why do we instead feel that, you know, we have this big mission that we need to make sure that data is the right quality for the organization? Like, can we just take it, you know, lower the volume a little bit, just focus on something smaller? And it's easy to say you don't boil the ocean, but that's what it means to me. You see Excel being used, misused. Take a note, right? That join the community, come on the podcast, talk to your favorite podcast host. Let's create a data therapy session for everybody, for every professional, right? But you're not going to change the habit of that person using Excel or Power BI, whatever it is, in that way. They built a habit out of the need of surviving in the business. So that's the last thing you're going to change. And that's another mistake I did in the past, you know, coming in and go like, oh, you guys using Excel, losers, you know, I'll show you a better way. People, well, I didn't say losers, but that's what I was thinking, you know, and that thinking, I think, transpires. People see their actions and go like, are you a partner or are you a threat? And we don't want to be seen as threats, I think.
Yeah, really good. And that gets me to don't jump to conclusions. I had a great episode about Power BI governance, where we talked about companies that have that magic goal, like 80% of our use. What did you do your homework before you? Have you checked how people are actually working with data, how they actually, and if most of the people are happy with you, then where does that number come from? Then you haven't checked. And the other thing that you talked about,
right?
enable the business to take lead, to provide guidance. Our role is not to jump to conclusions,
Not to be
the driving force, but rather helping the business do that change. And the last point,
you talked about,
well, people want to do the lead. And I think that from a data management perspective, we see that will be much less if we have good data quality, if we have
standards and practices in place.
So the big picture for us is less energy on the stuff that is the basic, and then
use more energy
on the fun and exciting and sexy stuff. Long-term goal, and that's why we're driving towards it, right?
And you know what? It's easy to go. I don't know. I feel like a mix of emotions when I see the shortcuts, you know, like happening in front of my eyes, and thinking, come on, like you're just generating tech debt or informational knowledge debt without even realizing. But the thing is, I'm not entirely sure people realize when they do it. You know, it's part of data literacy, I suppose, or data management literacy. I raised this a long time ago with my guest, dataliteracy.com. Come on, Loris, you can do it. It was a long time ago, which tells you that my memory is bad. But we talked about data literacy. Ben Jones, of course, Ben Jones talked about data literacy episode 16. So that was more than a year ago. And his point, like my point in that episode was, hey, we do a lot of data literacy, like being able to read and write and you know, influence change with data, but we don't really explain the importance of the stuff that nobody sees, the behind the stage. Everybody just looks at the stage, whether it's Power BI, a dashboard, or a bot, or in Slack or Teams, you know, whatever it is, the interface. But behind that interface there's a factory, there's a digital factory. That's a whole beautiful world made of stuff that you don't see, that you can't smell, that you can't touch, that is necessary to deliver the things you need in the real world to do the things you want to do. It's complicated. It's just complicated to explain. We know we are enlightened just because we've seen it, we built it, we smell it, even if it doesn't have any smell. But people that don't know, that have never been in touch, for them it's like, I don't even know why you're paid. Why are we paying you? Why do I keep you on on the books? What is your value again? Like, yeah, data quality. Isn't just data good data by default? Do we really need to worry about data quality? Yes, you do. And so yeah, communicating that is hard, I guess, emotionally.
Should we, last 5 minutes, talk about number 7 a bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Have a roundup.
I talked about all 7 lessons.
Good. Number 7 is fun, but there are a couple parts here, right? You had
Logical safety.
I did some work on that collaborative readiness, which is basically you can say
it is mature enough
to go to the next step in there.
We do.
We love to do that, right? The majority assessments.
But how ready are you actually?
And there's something about technological readiness, but there's also some
readiness, and that means
how ready are you to share? How ready your failures? How ready are you to share that? Well, this and to create that openness around it. I think.
I love it. I love it. That's vulnerability, and vulnerability is this thing where automatically creates that safe space where people talk about their failures and embrace them. That they don't just talk about it, then go like they're proud of telling the story of why they failed, because it's not. They don't see failure in itself. They don't feel it. They don't feel failure as a negative thing. They generally believe that there's no other way to learn. And so that's kind of the environment where I do my best work, and I think we all can share that. It can be hard to create it in again, cultures that are different, but there's one empowering reality. I think if I think about it, then is we always underestimate the power of influence. We even if we're nobodies and we'd never gave a talk to a thousand employees before, in our little actions, in the things we do every day, the way we behave, even the side projects, for example, that we take on, nothing stops us from, for example, right, tomorrow we go to work and we create an event. Well, maybe not tomorrow, but in January, we create an event for the week after, Lunch and Learn, special talk on the shortcuts in Excel and how they impact your workflow a week, 4 weeks, 6 months down the track. That could be a piece of data literacy, data management literacy that explains people, hey, maybe you never thought about it, but here's the data run. Here's how data moves, and here's the impact of everything you do for yourself and for your colleagues that are going to come tomorrow and they want to understand it. They will recreate it, and now you have 2 copies. And good luck deciding which one is which one is the truth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can do. I think it's easy to underestimate the impact that one single person can have with enough passion, enough drive, but that takes the courage to go out there and start speaking, and say, hey, this is what I think. Do you think differently? Fine. Let's kick off a debate.
Something like DAMA. I mean, that's what we are about, right? To providing that space outside of your company where
what other is there?
have the same problems, challenges. I mean, that's what DAMA is about, and
I think
that all the principles about data management are about, right? This is what keeps us alive, and
yeah,
And Peter Eichen, our president from DEMA International, he framed it like there is a responsibility for each and every one of us.
Yeah. Which, this is a topic that we haven't touched, but we don't have time because the stream is about to end. What does it take to build a podcast? I suppose maybe we should do another live, Winfried, to tell the story of this, because there's a lot of people, our listeners find our shows extremely interesting and valuable. I think at least that's a story that we like to tell ourselves anyways. Most people that reach out, they're very excited about our shows. The others don't probably reach out. But if that's true, then the next step is, okay, how do we make this sustainable, right? And I know that Dhamma makes it's a huge part of the support and the help that keeps making possible your show. With my show, I decided to start it from scratch, and some learnings that I'm be happy to share. But at the moment, that's sort of the point where every creator really has to face the reality. Do you want your listeners to be the product, or do you want them to be the customer? And in a world that it's filled with free content, that's a hard question to ask. And so, different shows take different directions. And I see from my favorite podcasts, podcasts that started out independent, and now they are, they've been conditioned to take one direction and tell one story, one version of the story. I don't like that. And so I hope that I'll manage to keep Discovering Data independent for as long as possible. That doesn't mean we're not open to sponsorships, but it's a different way of sponsoring. So again, if anyone is interested, or anyone that might be interested, let them know. Feel free to reach out, PM on LinkedIn or on the website as well. Yeah, cool. That's we're at the end of it. I don't know. Last thoughts, last wishes for Christmas. If I was Santa, I mean, look at me with this hat. I mean, you gotta. Don't you feel like writing a letter? What would you like, Winfried? What are you?
Was fulfilled yesterday. Already mentioned Argentina and France, so I'm really happy about that one. I don't know if you.
I wish I could say that I've seen it. No, it was at 1 a.m. I was fast asleep, so I'm gonna tune in and watch a replay now.
You have to. Yeah. Merry Christmas to you.
All right. Merry Christmas to you as well. Merry Christmas to everybody in the audience. Thank you again for tuning in and sharing some thoughts. Would be really nice to have more sessions with you guys together. Tor Arne Heistad on LinkedIn. Thank you, Tor. Seems like this conversation could go on much longer. Absolutely. And I don't blame you if you disconnected and went to get a coffee, because we tend to talk quite a lot here. But it's definitely appreciated your help and the presence of everybody else. We got 14 at the moment connected, 14 people that stuck with us for an hour. This is an unbelievable result. So this is not a short TikTok 60 seconds. This is a deep conversation on a Monday before Christmas. So I'm going to say, well done to all of you. Big claps from here. And I'll definitely tune in to Winfried podcast. Meta Dema, you'll find it on Apple, everywhere really. Dema Norway, Meta Dema, and Discovering Data, of course.
Data, right?
Yeah, definitely Discovering Data and discovering.com.
Laura's providing that live session on our podcast as well. So if you haven't had the chance to tune in.
Good point. Yes, this is going to go live in the next 24 hours, on our respective podcasts. Thanks to the magic work of Winfried in his spare time, and Ren, my podcast co-producer. Thank you very much to everybody. And all the best. My wish is going to be better data for everybody and a more sane state of mind, so we don't lose it. We can keep, we can keep going and be happy and smile and have that energy that everybody can absorb and get infected with, and make transformation long term happen by like aligning small pieces of sugar one after the other. The sugar train, we call it. Cool. Well, it's a big ciao from me, everyone. Winfried, we're gonna catch up very soon, and all the best.
All right. Thanks. Merry Christmas. Bye.
Ciao.